I cut off my best friend after she made my life a nightmare. I always thought I had the perfect best friend. Ben and I had been inseparable since sophomore year of high school. But when I met Claire, I felt like I'd finally found the missing piece of my social puzzle. She was gorgeous, confident, and had this magnetic energy that made everyone around her laugh a little louder and smile a little brighter. We became a trio immediately. Honestly, I think I admired her more than I realized, and that might have been my first mistake. At first, Claire seemed harmless. She would compliment my outfits, ask me for advice about classes, and somehow always knew when I was stressed, offering what she called a little Ava pep talk. Ben, of course, adored her from the start. He always said I needed someone who could push me out of my comfort zone, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker. But the cracks started to show pretty quickly. The first time was subtle, almost laughable. We were sitting in the dining hall during our first week of college, eating lunch with a few other people. Claire was recounting a story about a party she'd gone to, and she laughed a little too loud when she mentioned my clothes. "I mean, Ava, your outfit is unique," she said, tilting her head with that perfect smirk she had. I laughed it off, but I felt my face heat up. Everyone else seemed to find it funny, but I felt small. Then came the group project. Claire and I were paired with two other classmates, and at first I thought it was just normal team dynamics. But she started taking credit for ideas I had suggested, casually dismissing my contributions with "oh, I thought that was my idea." I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was overreacting, but Ben noticed too. He asked me privately if I was okay, and I said yes, even though my stomach twisted every time Claire smiled at me like I was clueless. It escalated from there. Every little interaction became a test of patience. She would copy my outfits, and when I commented, she'd laugh it off and call it a compliment. She had this way of twisting situations to make me look insecure, whether in front of friends, at class, or online. And the worst part, Ben didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, but he was too mesmerized by her to care. One night, I found out that she had told a group of people I was boring and clingy just because I had said I didn't want to go out that weekend. My stomach sank. I felt betrayed in a way I couldn't explain. I trusted her and considered her a friend. I tried confronting her carefully. I texted her, "Hey, can we talk? I feel like some things you've said or done have been hurtful." Her response was almost immediate. "Ava, you're imagining things. You're way too sensitive. Don't overthink it." That was the pattern. Every time I brought up her behavior, she flipped it back on me. I began questioning myself. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was the problem. And yet, every time I tried to distance myself, she made it impossible. She would text me constantly, drop by unannounced, or guilt me by claiming she had no other friends. "You're my only friend, Ava," she'd say, and somehow my heart would squeeze. Because who wants to feel like they're abandoning someone? Even Ben would subtly hint that I was overreacting. "She's just like that," he'd say. "You two are so alike, you just don't get her humor sometimes." One Friday night, Ben and I had planned a quiet night in, just movies and takeout. Claire had texted me earlier, "You should come to the party tonight. It's going to be wild." I ignored it, figuring Ben and I could just enjoy our night. But a few hours later, she showed up at our apartment. I was startled. "Claire, what are you doing here?" I asked. She just smiled, that infuriating smile, and said, "I couldn't let you miss the fun. You're my bestie." Ben was confused. I tried explaining I wanted a quiet night, but Claire laughed and brushed me off. "Oh, come on, Ava, don't be such a bore. Live a little." She texted everyone she knew, convincing them to come over. Within an hour, our peaceful night was a crowded chaos. People spilled drinks on the rug, music blared, and Claire spent the whole time subtly mocking things about me. My laugh, my choice of snacks, even the way I held a cup were all punchlines. Ben noticed, and I could see him starting to feel uncomfortable, but he didn't stop it. That night, I cried in my bedroom while Claire's laughter echoed from the living room. I realized that this wasn't friendship, and I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't hurting me. The next week, I tried to reclaim some sense of control. I stopped replying immediately to Claire's messages. I avoided her in the halls and skipped one of the big campus parties she had planned. She definitely noticed. The messages started small. "Why aren't you answering? Did I do something?" Then they escalated. "You're so cold, Ava. I thought we were best friends." By Thursday, she had sent me a long text, the kind that felt like it was designed to twist my stomach into knots. It said, "I can't believe you're treating me like this. I've done nothing but support you. Ben even agrees you're acting crazy. If you can't handle me, maybe you don't deserve to have a friend like me." I stared at the screen, heart racing. This was emotional manipulation. I knew it, but part of me felt guilty anyway. I wanted to reply and defend myself, but I stopped. I couldn't engage in her game anymore. That weekend, Ben invited me out to a quiet coffee shop downtown. I poured my heart out, telling him everything that had happened. His face fell. "Ava, I didn't realize it was this bad," he said. He had noticed her behavior, but like me, he'd written it off as Claire being dramatic. He promised he would support me, and I felt a little relief. Though I knew it wasn't going to fix things instantly, the turning point came during group project presentations. Claire, as usual, tried to dominate the presentation, cutting me off multiple times. I had prepared all my points carefully, but she kept speaking over me. I felt my blood boil. Normally I would shrink back, but this time I didn't. When she interrupted me the third time, I calmly said, "Claire, I'd like to finish my point, please." She laughed, but I held my ground. The professor noticed, asked me to continue, and I delivered my section perfectly. Claire's face turned red, and I swear I saw a flicker of fear, like she realized I wasn't going to let her push me around anymore. After class, she cornered me. "You think you can just..." she started, but I cut her off. "Claire, this isn't a competition. I'm done being treated like I'm beneath you. You want to be mean. That's your problem, not mine." She walked away, muttering something under her breath. I felt a strange mix of guilt and relief. That was the first time I really stood up to her without hesitation. I could feel the power shifting, just a little, but I knew she wouldn't let it go easily. Claire thrived on chaos, on controlling people's perceptions. She would make the next few weeks a living nightmare if I didn't act strategically. I realized that surviving this friendship wasn't about confrontation, it was about taking control of my own life, quietly but decisively. Ben and I spent the evening planning ways to limit her influence over us, especially in social situations. I blocked her on some apps and kept my distance, but every move had to be calculated. Claire wasn't just a mean girl. She was clever, manipulative, and persistent. She thrived on getting a reaction. That week, I began noticing patterns in her behavior. She would gossip about people to test loyalty, create unnecessary drama in groups, and play the victim when confronted. I realized that if I wanted to survive I couldn't just react. I had to anticipate. And maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to turn this nightmare into something empowering for myself. By the end of that week, I had made a decision. I wouldn't let Claire dictate my life anymore. I wouldn't let her make me question myself, make Ben doubt me, or make my social life miserable. This wasn't just about a friendship, it was about reclaiming my dignity. And I was ready to fight in my own quiet, methodical way. I thought I had handled Claire by standing up in class, but that only seemed to make her more determined. Over the next week, her tactics became sharper, almost surgical in their cruelty. She didn't just try to embarrass me anymore. Now she tried to isolate me from everyone I cared about, especially Ben. It started small. She would casually make offhand comments around him when I wasn't there. "Ava's been really stressed lately," she said one evening. "She's just not herself." Ben, being the sweet, empathetic person he is, immediately worried. Then she would show up at places I'd planned to go alone or with other friends. Coffee shops, the library, even my favorite quiet park bench. Every time I tried to enjoy a moment of solitude, she was there, smiling as if nothing was wrong. One evening, it hit me how deliberate it all was. I was at Ben's apartment, helping him sort through his weekend work, when Claire texted him. I could see part of the conversation pop up on his phone. Are you avoiding me? Ava is acting weird again. Don't let her turn you against me. Ben looked up at me, eyebrows knitted. She worries about me, I guess. I nodded, but inside my patience was wearing thin. I realized something important. Claire's goal wasn't just to control me, it was to make me doubt myself. At every turn, she wanted me to feel guilty for even existing in my own life. That night, I stayed up thinking. I had to find a way to reclaim control without giving her the reaction she craved. Reacting emotionally would only fuel her. I decided to play it smart. I wasn't planning to expose her publicly yet. I just needed to understand her patterns, predict her next move. The next day, Claire's behavior escalated in public. During a group study session at the library, she deliberately spilled a small cup of coffee on my notes. Everyone gasped, and for a moment I froze. She looked at me, feigning horror. Oh my God, Ava, I'm so sorry, how clumsy of me. People immediately rallied to help me, but the smirk on her face said everything. I didn't panic. I took a deep breath, smiled politely, and calmly said, "It's okay, accidents happen. I'll just rewrite these notes." The group didn't see what I saw. Claire's frustration that I hadn't crumbled under her theatrics. I realized she thrived on reactions. No reaction meant her power diminished. Over the next few weeks, I noticed another shift. Claire began turning my friends against me subtly, planting seeds of doubt. Ava can be so sensitive, she would whisper to mutual friends. Sometimes she just overreacts. A friend of mine actually repeated one of Claire's lines to me, concerned. I bit my tongue. Explaining Claire's manipulation only drew more attention to it, which was exactly what she wanted. Ben started noticing too. He pulled me aside one night, a little guilty. Ava, she's really been acting strange. I didn't realize how much it was affecting you. Are you okay? I told him I was fine, though inside I felt like I was standing on a cliff, balancing between sanity and frustration. I didn't want him worrying, and I didn't want Claire to see me faltering by the end of the month. It became clear that Claire wasn't going to stop. I needed a plan to not just to survive her, but to take control. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started building my own social power quietly, connecting with people she hadn't reached yet. I made genuine friends who weren't part of her drama network, people who valued me for me. I kept my interactions subtle so Claire wouldn't notice immediately. But slowly, I was creating a support system she couldn't manipulate. And then, the worst happened. She directly tried to sabotage me. During a major class presentation, she spread rumors that I had plagiarized part of my paper. My heart sank when the professor called me aside, concerned. But I had kept all my drafts, all my research notes, every email. I calmly presented my evidence. The professor looked impressed and said, "This is thorough, Ava. Thank you for clarifying." Claire's face was a mask of shock and barely concealed rage. I realized then that for the first time, her manipulations had failed completely. I had been methodical, prepared, and calm. And she had no control over the narrative. That night, I confided in Ben. "She's not going to stop," I said. "But I'm learning to play smarter. I'm not reacting the way she wants anymore." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "I've got your back, always." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Claire was still a problem, but now she was a problem I could handle strategically. And if she thought she could keep me under her thumb, she was sorely mistaken. Once I realized Claire's game could be beaten with strategy, I became methodical. Every cruel comment she made, every manipulation she tried, I became a shadow of patience, calculating and deliberate, because I knew the moment I acted impulsively, she would seize it. I also learned to subtly expose her behavior to those who mattered. Not publicly, not in a dramatic confrontation, but through careful, factual examples. People began noticing the inconsistencies in her stories. Slowly, the seeds of doubt about Claire were spreading. It wasn't my doing, just reality shining through the cracks she had created. One night, our dorm was hosting a big social event, and Claire was determined to be the center of attention. She had already started her usual routine, monopolizing conversation, making snide remarks to anyone who didn't laugh at her jokes and strategically leaving me out of groups. But this time, I didn't panic. I had a plan. I engaged quietly with other guests, laughed, shared genuine stories, and slowly drew people in. Claire noticed, of course. Her face flickered with frustration every time someone paid attention to me instead of her. By the end of the night, I had more people around me than she did, and she couldn't manipulate them like she could our original friend group. The final blow came when Ben, who had stayed by my side all night, gently pulled me aside. "Ava, I just realized something. You've been handling her so well. I think people are starting to see what she's really like." I smiled, a deep, satisfied smile I hadn't felt in months. For the first time, I felt like the power had shifted. Claire, of course, didn't go quietly. She tried one last gambit, loudly claiming that I had stolen her friends and that everyone was abandoning her for no reason. But it was too late. The people around her had already witnessed her behavior firsthand. No one took her seriously. And Ben finally saw everything clearly. He hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm proud of you." I realized something important. Claire thrived on control. Yes, but her power relied on secrecy, on twisting perceptions. Once reality was undeniable, she had no leverage. By the end of that semester, Claire's influence had faded. She tried to maintain her social presence, but people weren't impressed anymore. She would make a snide comment here or there, but it no longer mattered. I had taken back control, not through confrontation, but through strategy, patience, and self-respect. By the time the next semester rolled around, I was determined to reclaim my life completely. The months I'd spent quietly observing Claire, documenting her manipulations and building my own support system had paid off. I had grown more confident, more strategic, and more aware of her patterns than ever before. But I knew better than to think she would disappear quietly. Claire thrived on drama, on chaos, and on control. She was clever, and her manipulations were persistent. I had to be smarter. It started small again, just tests of my composure. She would comment under my social media posts with vague jabs or drop sly remarks during class discussions. "Interesting perspective, Ava. But are you sure about that?" she asked once, her tone dripping with false concern. Normally, that would have rattled me. But now, I smiled politely and said, "Yes, I double-checked my sources." The professor nodded, and no one questioned me. Claire's face tightened for a split second, but she quickly masked it. Then the biggest challenge came: student council. Elections. I never considered myself political, but I saw it as the perfect opportunity to prove to myself and others that I was more than Claire's shadow. Running wasn't about public validation, it was about demonstrating leadership, integrity, and confidence. Claire, of course, noticed. She immediately began attempting to sabotage me, whispering to mutual friends, spreading rumors, and painting me as someone manipulative or self-serving. But I was ready. I had months of documented proof that showed my consistency, reliability, and character. I campaigned openly and honestly, meeting people, listening to their concerns, and quietly demonstrating that I was someone who could be trusted. I didn't need to attack Claire. Her own behavior was now so transparent that people saw the truth. The tension came to a head the day of the final debate. Claire tried every trick she could, interrupting, belittling, mocking my ideas. But I stayed calm. I listened carefully, answered clearly, and subtly highlighted my own initiatives without putting her down. The room's attention naturally shifted toward me. By the end, applause broke out when I finished speaking, and I noticed Claire's confident mask faltering. Her smirk, the one that had haunted me for months, was gone. Election day was nerve-wracking. My heart pounded as the results were announced. I had won by a significant margin. Cheers filled the room, and I could feel a wave of relief and satisfaction crash over me. Claire tried to muster her usual charm, but it felt hollow. She had underestimated the power of patience, preparation, and consistency. Later that night, I sat with Ben, holding his hand tightly. "I can't believe it," I said, my voice trembling with relief. After everything, I actually did it. He squeezed me and smiled, pride shining in his eyes. You were brilliant. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel truly free. But I knew for real closure, I had to confront her directly. I arranged to meet Claire at a quiet cafe, hoping to end things with dignity rather than anger. She arrived, still, trying to appear unaffected, but her eyes flickered with tension. I took a deep breath and began. Claire, I said, I need you to understand something. The way you treated me was hurtful. I can't let it continue in my life, and I won't. She opened her mouth, probably to deny or deflect, but I continued. Calmly. I'm not here to argue or punish you. I'm here for closure. I've moved forward, built my own life, and I've surrounded myself with people who value honesty and kindness. You can do the same if you want, but I won't let your behavior affect me anymore. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she muttered, almost inaudibly, whatever, and walked away. That was it. No confrontation, no dramatic fight, just peace. And for the first time, I felt completely unburdened. Life after Claire was surreal but beautiful. My friendships deepened, my bond with Ben grew stronger, and I felt empowered in a way I never had before. Claire was still around, but she had no power over me. Her attempts at drama were ignored, her manipulations transparent, and her presence no longer intimidating. I realized a fundamental truth. You don't have to fight every battle directly. Sometimes, surviving quietly, building your own world, and letting reality do the talking is the most powerful response of all. I had reclaimed my space, my voice, and my dignity. For the first time in months, I could breathe deeply, unafraid of manipulation, unburdened by fear, and fully confident that I was capable of handling anything that came my way. And that finally was the most satisfying ending of all.